So we're still in Raag Jog, but we're going to start to look at the jaw part of the Alap, where first of all you just start with this very basic sequence. Okay, so it doesn't really get much more simple than that. But what you're going to try to do is keep that intact while you're changing the notes, but also changing the techniques, the expressive techniques, like the bends and the slides that you're doing with that, and try to keep the timing. So, for example, like. So a little rhythmic variation now and then. Da, chick, da, chick, da, chick. But always coming back to the da, chick. Okay, now I found that really difficult when I first started having lessons with Rupa Panesar, the sitar, wonderful sitar player, because she was showing me this, and it was awkward just to try and keep the rhythm going, but then be a bit looser and more vocal. I mean, it's not loose because it's actually very controlled, but have that sense of expansive time with the left hand, but then very clockwork rhythmic time with the right hand. So while I'm keeping this going, I want to be able to move in a way that's less metered with the left hand. So for example, like. So I'm probably letting the time float and slip a little bit just to allow me to really express that, the arc of that meaned. But I'm not letting it slip away. I'm keeping that sense because it's kind of flexible time, but you don't want to feel as if you've just lost that flow and you've lost that momentum. So that's really quite tricky to do, but that's one of the most effective things you can do with that. More simple things are just like hammer on, pull off, slide, and then just kind of move that around. So Sid is just joining us, I think.
So you always come back to Sa for after every
Yeah,
song.
yeah. SAR, I mean, I do that all the time. I forget to mention it because it's just so self evident, but that is really something that you have to internalize that basic rule. Um, when you move on to a different part of the rag, you might be coming back to ga or coming back to pa, or whatever, maybe it's the vadi or samvadi. Um, just to be clear, actually, on a side note, the teaching that I've had, my teachers never really talked about Vadi and Samvadi, and a lot of teachers don't actually mention that very much. It's more just about the overall phrasing of the rag itself, and actually Shahid Pervez would say there's no Vadi or Samvadi, every note is important. Not to put down anyone that uses Vadi and Samvadi, and I do talk about those at times because they can be very, very useful. But Sa is something very, very. It's the ultimate resolution. So if you're moving around, and then you just kind of come back to Sa, it's like you kind of you breathe a bit deeper and just
Is it
really tune in with that.
use it like a
So
pivot point? pivot point
Yeah,
to.
it's like yeah, it's like that intermission between one idea and the next idea. So
Mm-hmm.
you have a long sequence of phrases moving through a few different notes, and then you
Mm-hmm.
come back to Saar, and it's like, right now I've come back to kind of ground zero, and
Mm-hmm.
then launch out somewhere else from there. But coming back to Saar will give you that sense of you've completed that musical idea,
Mm-hmm.
um, and moving on as well. A lot of different tan phrases that you do that are maybe moving into a gat. You would
Mm-hmm.
you'd very often try to finish your tan with sa, and then jump into the gat wherever it is. So like sa,
Uh,
and then maybe the melody is like, so that's actually sa ga ma, or a different gat might be like in Bageshri. Sorry, so I might do a phrase like, so ending with a Gare Sani Sa, Gare Sani Sa, so two different gats from, well, they're part of the same gut, but two different kind of entry mukra phrases in Bagashri.
so
And one goes up, the other goes down, but ending with Sa and then joining back into the main gut from there.
sort of like even like in coffee, like sunny,
Oh yeah,
sun.
definitely.
So
Yeah,
you get.
that one starts with Sani Sa, so something like so I'm going da 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 go Sani Sani Sa. So there's a linear join to that note. Um, if you break that, if you go for example like, oh sorry, wrong note. So sa re ga ma pa ma sa ni sa. That's kind of okay, but it's not as strong. Maybe if you did
uh,
something like that's gives a bit more variation. I ended up with pa, which is another a strong kind of finishing note. But if
mm,
I contrast that with something that still moves around but gets back to sa, like it has more
mm,
impact because it feels like you've really fallen right back into that sa. So
mm-hmm,
that feels like it has more logical connection, and because so many things in Indian music are much more linear. You have to really find your way back to that sa, and you're not doing it randomly. You're not kind of jumping over notes to get there. It's like you plan your line, you phrase in a way that you just naturally end up in that spot. So it feels like it's fallen into place, and that you weren't in a rush to get there. You just naturally landed in the right place. Just dropped my pick. There we go. So yeah, that was a bit of a tangent, but it's so important. That's the importance of SAR and the resolution of SAR. So when you're doing this kind of pattern, hi Sid, by the way, we started talking about SAR because we were playing just this very simple pattern. This is part of the jaw, part of the Alap, and then a bit of improvisation. And kind of coming back to Sa as a resting place. So that's the end of that idea. Come back to Sa for a few notes, and then kind of deep breath, and then you begin maybe the next exploration, and then come back to Sa. So this is Alap because there's no tabla. It's just sitar or guitar in this case, um, or the sarod would be a very similar thing. You get a bit of jaw on, like, for example, Hari Prasad Teresia does jaw on the flute, and he's playing on his own, but he's just starting to play more with an insistent rhythm. Okay, but I think before him, I don't know if different classical flute players really did that. So I think he was known for really developing that jaw, like having a really strong sense of rhythm on the flute. But the idea is that the instrumentalist is providing that rhythm for themselves before the tableau comes in. So that's kind of your job, keep the rhythm going. So you can use your drop D tuning. You can just kind of play. So play the main G string and then strum on the bottom string, or maybe the bottom two strings. It will sound different, but you'll technically be doing the same thing with your right hand. So you'll kind of get used to the principle of it.